Hello, everybody. We are back with our fourth and final episode of the series POSH is Good for Employees and Organizations Why and How. As you all know, UCS is coming out with these podcasts with the intention and passion to make one and all understand the ABCs of the laws related to sexual harassment of women at workplaces in India. We will be ending this series with Anupama, the chief trainer at UCS, in conversation with Mayank, an entrepreneur from Mysore in Karnataka. A very warm welcome to you, Anupama and Mayank. The last three episodes have been such a revelation about the POSH Act to so many. The strong, single track mindset that most people have had against the law has been so beautifully negated by you. Many of our listeners must be really curious to know what you will be enlightening us with in this final episode. Without prolonging further, shall we start? Over to you, Mayank. I can sense your zeal.
Thanks, Kaveri. Hi, Anupama. I must say that this entire episode for me has been such a learning curve. I've also had so many discussions with my friends regarding this and have told them that the POSH Act is indeed a means to prevent, prohibit, and redress an act of sexual harassment and does not for sure tip to one side favoring only women. I'm waiting to hear your final thoughts on it.
Hello, Mayank. Definitely. If you remember, in our last episode, I told you about two cases. One, Mr. KPS Gill, and the other, Mr. Alfie Chug. In both the cases, there was public outrage. It was a long drawn battle in the courts and was covered completely by the media, compromising one's privacy. I will compare this with the sexual harassment complaints that have been filed before the Internal Complaints Committee of several organizations, in which case often the matter is settled between the parties at the interim stage itself, even before the inquiry begins. I have come across at least two cases where the victims settled for an apology from the perpetrator or the perpetrator leaving the company. And in cases where the inquiry did take place, it was completed within 90 days, and that is less than 3 months, Mayank. All the information related to these cases were kept confidential and the files were closed. Accordingly, with the POSH Act, there's a possibility to keep the entire investigations within the four walls of the organization. The IC members, the victim, the perpetrator, and the employer are under an obligation to keep it confidential. Compare this with the cases that I just spoke about in the last episodes. Don't you think it is much better? Tell me, Mayank, what do you think? Isn't it better in comparison to a prolonged, time-consuming, money-bleeding warfare in the courts? Come to think of it, POSH Act is actually a boon to employees, employers, and the organization. And considering all of this, instead of men having a notion as to why POSH Act is only for women, or believing in a myth that women use this act only to harass men or take vengeance, I think it's high time that men look at the positive side of the POSH Act, why it was enacted, and how best one can make workplaces respectful. I do hope I've busted all the myths you had. There are, of course, several organizations that I'm aware of who are POSH compliant, not only in letter, but also in spirit. And I would like to take this opportunity to mention Kennametal India Limited, with whom I am the external committee member on their internal committee. A very heartening fact is that not only Kennametal India Limited conducts the required sessions as provided under law, but also all the members of the Internal Complaints Committee from all the branches pan-India get together on a quarterly basis every year and discuss to understand, comprehend, and see what more can be done and how better they can make workplaces respectful. What do you say, Mayank?
Yes, of course. You definitely have busted all the myths. Thank you, Anupama. After listening to you, I can admit without any second thought that the enactment of the POSH Act is truly beneficial to all the employees and also the organizations. I must appreciate your patience in telling me about all this and broadening my knowledge about the POSH Act. Now I can tell my friend who runs an MSME in Mysore that he can appoint women without any fear. I also hope that after listening to you, many more organizations follow the steps of Kenna Metal in implementing the POSH Act to make their workplaces respectful.
Sure, Mayank, you must indeed do so. And yes, I do hope organizations realize the importance and benefits of the POSH Act and gear up to implement it.
Ladies and gentlemen, we now come to the end of the series on POSH is good for employees and organizations, why and how. I thank you all for your time, and I do hope that you found this series very informative and interesting. Do get in touch with us with your queries, suggestions and feedback by emailing us at admin@upseedconsulting.com or writing to us on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram or Facebook. We will be back soon with another interesting episode on another interesting topic. Wishing you all a great evening.